Good afternoon and happy Friday. Today is July 30th, but I'm recording the August 2021 column or blog post for the mitschneidersworld.com site because it's going to be a busy weekend and I want to make sure I have it up for the beginning of August. And it's important to me. The subject's important to me. I hope you'll find it interesting as well. It has to do with communication and the difficulty involved in communicating clearly and concisely. And that's especially difficult when you're trying to communicate about communicating. It's difficult because you can only control the messaging that you're sending out. You can't control what the receiver hears. And one thing that you become aware of very, very early, and I was fortunate in this, I think, to learn this early, and that is that people respond far more to stories, to interesting, compelling stories, especially stories they can relate to personally, than they do to facts or data. And that's important to remember. People are much more likely to retain what you're trying to communicate if it comes in story form. Perhaps from millennia of sitting around a campfire and, sharing oral history. I'm not sure exactly how or why. I'm not an anthropologist, but I do know for a fact that when you're trying to communicate internally or externally, when you're trying to talk to family members or friends, and you're trying to make a point, certainly stories are the way to do it most effectively. You can learn hacks for this, things to make it easier, things to make it more powerful, things to add structure, especially important when you're in business. But there's something else that's involved here as well, and it's worth commenting on, especially in our culture, especially now, especially when everybody's trying to hire somebody and there are more jobs than there are people to fill them. And that is the fact that a lot of these jobs are going to be filled by people of other cultures, people who have come here from other countries, people who have other norms and speak different languages. And it's important to recognize that, especially here in Southern California, we're aware of that because so many people speak Spanish. The problem occurs when you don't realize, or you fail to realize, or you fail to accept the fact that while everybody speaks a form of Spanish, Spanish is a very idiomatic language, and consequently the Spanish that's spoken in Costa Rica is not likely to be the same Spanish that's spoken in Argentina, and the Spanish that's in Peru may not be the same Spanish that's spoken in Mexico City. Or the same Spanish that's spoken in Mexico City may not be the same Spanish that's spoken in Guadalajara. So it's important to recognize that and to recognize the importance of communication and communicating clearly and concisely both upstream, when you're in business, especially from the shop workspace to the counter or the office, and from the office to a client, etc. Going back to this idea of having hacks that can help you do that, what we learned early on in our business was the integration of what started out originally in Ford service bays within the dealership network. And that is what they called the 3 C's. The 3 C's are really easy to understand. But they don't have utility just in the context of the workplace, and I'll explain that in a minute, I hope. But the three C's that Ford used were basically concern, cause, cure. And basically, you could translate that quickly and easily into concern is what brought the vehicle to the shop in the first place. Cause is pretty much self-explanatory. What caused the problem that brought the car to the shop in the first place? And cure, what do you have to do to fix it? And when we started to integrate that into Schneider's Automotive, one of the things that we found one of the things that I found that was interesting was that there were two things that were left out, and they're really important things. The first was to have a space for customer request, because there were plenty of times people would come into the shop and they would say, "I would like you to look at this. I would like a 30,000 mile service. I would like an oil change." And that's not the same thing as a customer concern. That's a customer request. But it's important for whoever you're communicating with, if you're on the service counter and you're communicating with the service tech and the service bay, it's important that they understand what the customer asked for and what they were concerned about and what the difference was. The other thing that we learned was that there was a fourth C, and it had been overlooked, it had been neglected, and that's confirmation. Realistically, whether or not whatever it is you did, whatever it is you found, and then subsequently the service you performed, whether or not it fixed the car. And, which would usually entail another road test, another opportunity to take the vehicle on the road and make sure that it was in fact taken care of. So those things are also quite important, and they're worthy of concern, worthy of discussion, worthy of communication. And the importance of this, especially when you're dealing with people of other cultures, is it gives them a framework within which to work that simplifies what it is that they're doing. This is why the car is here. Your responsibility is to find out why it's here. Your responsibility is communicate upward why it's here, and what you intend to do or what you suggest needs to be done in order to repair it. And then, of course, to take it out and make sure that the problem is gone. To a large degree, that has to do with starting the sentence with I. If you've been reading it, you've been listening, you know that this is near and dear to my heart, and that's the importance of accepting personal responsibility, accountability. And this is an extremely painful subject for me because I was so bad at communicating within the context of our business for a very, very long time, for far too long. And it resulted in tremendous angst and anxiety and pain. I mean, really, and anger, almost rage, because I couldn't figure out why it was that the people that I was so close to and I worked with every day couldn't figure out what it was I wanted, what was expected of them, what was important, why it was important to do what we were doing the way we were doing it. And finally, it occurred to me, I don't know whether it was a revelation or whether somebody pointed it out, I don't remember, but all of a sudden it became very clear that the reason nobody was doing what I needed them to do, what I wanted them to do, what was important for them to do, was because I hadn't shared that with them. Not only had I not shared what it was I wanted, I hadn't shared the relevance of it, particularly the relevance to them. We're all selfish creatures, and if you're going to be successful, having people work with you and accomplish tasks that are important to the success of the business as a whole, they better understand how it's going to benefit them. Not just how it's going to benefit the customer, not just how it's going to benefit you in the office, but how it's going to benefit them directly. And I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the ways that the 4 C's plays an important role in that. And that's one of the ways I titled one of the reasons I titled this piece C communication, because there are 4 C's there. So something to think about, certainly over the weekend if you catch this early. As always, I'd be really interested to learn how you react to this post, if it has any significance or meaning for you. And if you have any hacks to the communication issue, particularly with regard to dealing with people of other cultures. By the way, dealing with people of other cultures doesn't exclusively mean those within your own company or those within your own community. It also means dealing with people outside your business, outside your community, your business community, people in the community at large. So I think that's important as well. In the meantime, stay well, take care, pay attention to the news and what's going on with this Delta variant. It's particularly dangerous, insanely virulent, and if you're not vaccinated, please think about getting vaccinated. It's the only way we can put an end to this thing. You're endangering yourself, certainly, and that's tragic enough, but you endanger the rest of the community, and the more people that go unvaccinated for a longer length of time, the more likely we are to be dealing with another variant sooner than later. I try really hard not to get into things like this, so I'm not sure that this is the right forum, but it's hard to ignore them in a culture, in a situation where we're moving backwards, not forwards. And I don't think anybody in life or in business wants to be confronted with another shutdown. So please take care, stay well, and act responsibly.